I thought I was dreaming, but then I felt it. A tap on my shoulder. Small, deliberate, crouched in the corner, yellow eyes gleaming, gray skin smiling, watching. And I knew, if I'd fallen asleep just a second longer, I wouldn't have woken up. Hi witches, I'm Blair Bathory, and welcome to the Something Scary podcast. Thanks for joining us as we descend into the darkness together. Sometimes the smallest things are the deadliest. Tiny creatures, overlooked shadows, or whispered movements can harbor a hunger you can't imagine. Patient, relentless, waiting for the careless. And when they strike, there's no warning, no escape, only the shiver that something unseen is always watching. So, want to hear something scary? All creatures deadly and small. Sometimes the rules meant to keep you safe might be the ones that get you killed, especially if you aren't willing to bend when necessary. Like in this encounter shared by Evie, based on an urban legend. I grew up on a tiny island in the middle of the South Pacific called Pao Lao. Although the waters are typically calm, recently the waves had been lapping harshly at the shore. I wasn't the most superstitious kid. I swam all day with my friends until the sun sank and our parents yelled at us to come home. Salt water crusting on our skin, hair sticking to sharp little points. We thought we were invincible. But my mother never let us skip the shower. Never. Ever. She was religious, not one for nonsense, and she made sure we were scrubbed. Scrub that salt off every inch, she'd say. My sisters and I grumbled, but she never explained why. I asked once when I was older, and she just shook her head. Said she'd tell me someday. I never really understood until I heard the story. One day, when my mother was about 10, she spent the whole day swimming with friends. She came home exhausted around 11 at night. She was tired and didn't feel like a full shower. So she just dried herself off and went straight to bed, sharing the room with her younger brother. The house was small, the kind where every creak echoes. She said she drifted half asleep when she noticed movement at the corners of the room, small, fast movements. When she looked properly, she saw them. Tiny creatures, the size of a toddler, glowing yellow eyes, dark gray skin, pointy ears. They looked almost like sea monkeys someone had twisted into something mean. They were laughing, soft, cruel giggles that made her stomach lurch. One tugged at her leg. She kicked, scrambled across the floor. The creatures darted closer, circling, probing. She screamed for her brothers. Her oldest froze under the covers, eyes wide. Her youngest tried to light the lamp, and for a moment, just a moment, they were invisible again. She screamed, she sobbed, she huddled in a corner. Her youngest brother ran for her grandmother. They prayed over her for 10 minutes straight. When she opened her eyes, the little monsters were gone. Safe for that night. That's how my mother told it, and that's why we were always scrubbed after swimming. We followed the rules, never questioned. We never wanted to know what happened if we didn't. But here's the thing she didn't tell me until years later. And it's what makes it worse. The showers weren't protection. Not really. They were bait. The creatures, she called them chisio, were hunters. They fed on children who tried to avoid them, who thought they could cheat the rules. The more careful you were, the hungrier they got, the more persistent. They liked children who tried to be clever, who skipped the shower or stayed in the water too long. The prayers, the warnings, the rituals, they weren't stopping the chisio. They were keeping them ready, keeping them alert, letting them practice, letting them wait for the next target. And she only survived because she noticed them before sleep took her completely, that small window. I think about this all the time. The rules were never protection. They were a trap. Wash, scrub, obey, or you invite them to your bed. And even obeying doesn't mean you're safe. Not really. They're always waiting, always hungry. I remember when she told me this. I was 12. My stomach churned, the way it does when you feel like you just stepped barefoot on a coral spike. She said, "You must never think you're safe. You follow the rules, and even then, you might not be. But never stop. Never think you're clever. And if you ever see the yellow eyes, run. Don't fight. Don't scream. Just run and call someone, anyone. Because if they get you while you're asleep, you won't come back." I laughed nervously, but I never forgot. Years later, I swam in the ocean alone. I thought I was too old, too smart to worry about old island superstitions. Sun melting into the horizon, salt on my skin, exhausted. I skipped the shower that night. I dreamt I was in my room, or maybe I was awake. The lines blurred when fear is sharp. And then I felt it. A tap on my shoulder. Soft, deliberate, like someone testing the water before diving in. I froze. My body refused to move. The hairs on my arms stood up. Tap, tap. I saw it then, small, almost invisible at first, crouched by the corner of my room. Yellow eyes, gray skin, pointed ears, smiling, too wide, watching. The shadows around it shifted with it, like it was absorbing the room to hide. It searched for me. I bolted awake, gasping, heart hammering, sweat running into my eyes. Nothing. But I knew. I knew that if I'd fallen asleep just a second longer, and that's when I understood the real horror of the rules. The showers weren't protection. The prayers weren't protection. Obedience didn't guarantee survival. All they did was keep the creature hungry, alive, waiting for the next child who thought they could cheat the rules. I never swam alone at night again. I scrub every inch of my skin, every strand of hair, always. And sometimes when I shower in the dark, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Always in the corner, always small, always hungry. And I know, the Chasio are patient. They wait, and they never forget. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, counting, measuring, thinking about the next careless child. And I shiver, because deep down I know it could be anyone. Anyone who thinks the rules are just superstition. Even me. Some rules are meant to protect you, but what if following them only keeps the danger alive, waiting for the next careless child? How careful would you have to be to survive something that never forgets? Speaking of forgetting, don't forget to subscribe or follow us wherever you are listening so you don't miss a single episode. If you know someone else who loves horror as much as we do, share our podcast and help us spread the scares. Hi, witches. So I just wanted to talk about a few new horror movies coming out and things that I'm excited for this year. I think in theaters this upcoming week is a new Sam Raimi movie. He hasn't made a horror movie. This is the director of The Evil Dead, by the way, the original 2. He hasn't made a horror movie in, I think, 17 years. So this is his first horror movie in a very long time. And I worked with his daughter on my last film. And I met him one time. He's a very nice guy. And I'm very excited for this film, which will be coming out, I believe, this week. It's already getting fantastic reviews. It's called Send Help. Also, I don't know if anybody saw Frankenstein last year or Begonia. Those were my two favorite horror movies. I'm very excited for Sinners being nominated for all the awards, all the categories in the Academy Awards. I believe Ryan Coogler is one of the first men of color to ever be nominated for Best Director, which is really exciting. Frankenstein's nominated. There's just a lot of horror presence at the Academies this year, which last year, The Substance was nominated for a bunch of awards, which I love that film. And anyway, it's just great to see Hollywood appreciating the genre so much. When I first started making horror movies myself, which was about almost 20 years ago, horror was still very lowbrow. It didn't get the respect it does now, and it's just really exciting to be involved in this community, this genre at this time, because there's so many burgeoning filmmakers and stories that are being told. Leave me a comment below about what horror film you're most excited about this year, and what was your favorite horror movie last year? Maybe I haven't seen it. A mother will do anything to protect her child, even stay when she should run, like in this story written by Sarah Lukasiewicz. By the time Brandon's mother arrived, Brandon and Sari were beyond tired. Not the kind of tired solved with sleep, but the kind that settled in the joints and behind the eyes, where time slipped through your hands and left only exhaustion. Ella toddled across the living room, dragging a wooden spoon, her dark brown eyes lingering for too long, following them, studying them, watching more than a child should. She was a keen observer, yet she still didn't speak, a sore subject for dedicated parents. Carrie arrived with brisk energy and a hard-shell suitcase. She claimed she had everything handled. Relief washed over them. Sari could almost cry, and she went to take a shower. Brandon lingered, watching Ella circle her grandmother cautiously. Ella rarely smiled, but she stepped forward now, and something in Brandon's chest tightened. But he left Ella with his mother. The scream came less than 30 minutes later. Sari had barely shuffled into the kitchen when it tore out of her, raw, animalistic. Brandon was on his feet before he knew he moved. Ella was lying face down on the tile, her hair fanned into a puddle of water that had spread from the overturned dog bowl. Her small body was unnaturally still. Sari hit her knees and scooped her up, fingers slipping on the wet floor, already sobbing apologies. And then she screamed again. "What the hell is this?" she shrieked, dropping the thing as it burned her. It wasn't Ella. It was a doll? A doll the exact size of their daughter. The same soft curve of the cheeks. The same slight bend in the knees. The same weight, too heavy for plastic, too light for flesh. Its face was haunted in a way Sari couldn't articulate. The eyes were glassy but clouded, as if filmed over by age. The mouth parted just enough to suggest breath. Its hair was real, or close enough. Brandon stared at it, his heart slamming against his ribs. "Jesus," he muttered. "It looks straight out of a horror movie." Carrie laughed, the tension evaporating from her shoulders. "That's my doll," Carrie said brightly. "I bought it for Ella. We were playing with it." The doll lay between them, water soaking into its cloth body from a spilt dog bowl, its eyes tilted toward the ceiling. They couldn't believe Carrie brought them that creepy little thing. Carrie sniffed, mock offended. It was all the rage when she was growing up. Cost a fortune too. Handmade. None of that plastic nonsense. Real quality. They hated it immediately, but Ella didn't. She toddled in from around the kitchen island, took one look at the doll, and smiled a slow, wide smile she'd never given either of her parents. She picked it up and hugged it to her chest. She didn't let it go. The doll stayed even after Carrie left. They tried to ignore it. Brandon carried it into the garage. Ella screamed, panic-filled. When he returned it, she calmed. It became her constant companion. Then it began appearing where no one had left it, at the end of the hall, under blankets, at the bottom of the stairs. Each time, Ella seemed unsurprised. She dragged it everywhere. She began to speak to it in strings of gibberish sounds that nearly formed words. The house changed. The walls felt like they were holding their breath. Brandon sometimes swore the doll's expression shifted, a slight curl of the mouth, a focus in the eyes. Sari hated noticing. One night, through the baby monitor, Sari heard a whisper.
No.
She thought it was static, interference, a fragment of sound. But it wasn't. She opened the nursery. Ella sat on the rug, legs folded, the doll in front of her. Lips moved silently, fingers combing its hair.
She says you're loud,
Ella whispered, not to Sari, to the doll. A full sentence, clear as day. Words came more often after that. Full sentences, proper grammar. Ella never spoke directly to her parents. She repeated the doll's words for them, careful and deliberate, like messages being relayed. The doll began to look different, less slack, more focused. Sari touched its cheek once. It was warm. She recoiled. That night, Brandon woke to whispering beside the bed.
She says it's time to remember.
Ella murmured. Doll clutched to her chest. Brandon looked into the dark hallway and thought he saw someone standing there. Brandon called Carrie. She arrived slowly, pale, eyes fixed on the doll, now held possessively by Ella. She named the doll's previous owner, Elsa, Carrie's younger sister who had drowned in the bathtub one night while Carrie looked away. The death couldn't truly be the fault of a 4-year-old, but Carrie carried the weight of that burden. Ella's small fingers tightened around the doll's sleeve. Elsa? You never liked that name, she said. You always said it sounded cold. The room shrank. The walls pressed closer. They learned the truth in pieces. Elsa had talked to the doll constantly. After the drowning, Carrie hid it, but sometimes she could hear her sister humming late at night. And sometimes, memories bled in. Brandon saw water slowly rising in a tub, pale fingers curling at the edge before vanishing. Sari heard a child's laugh echo from an empty hallway, fading as though swallowed by the walls. The doll reacted when someone hesitated, shifting slightly in anger or impatience. Pipes hissed and sputtered at night. Faucets turned themselves on. Lights flickered in rhythm with a whispered phrase. Time stopped behaving properly. Hours slipped loose. Sari found herself in doorways without knowing why. Water became a presence. Pipes whispered. The faint rush of taps. Baths running themselves. Ella slept through it, but when awake, she listened.
She says you're almost there.
Ella told Brandon.
You just have to stop fighting it.
Carrie tried to leave. She packed and didn't say goodbye. They found her an hour later, sitting fully dressed in an empty bathtub, eyes fixed on the drain, the doll balanced carefully on the edge. The rules revealed themselves slowly. The doll never moved on its own. Someone always carried it, held it, listened. It needed someone who remembered feelings, guilt, love, loss. Children heard it best. Adults remembered deepest. And the final rule? The doll didn't want to take Ella. It was teaching her how to leave, how to be still enough, small enough, quiet enough to slip away without tearing the world. Sari understood what she needed to do. She did not cry. She did not hesitate. She sat on the living room floor and picked up the doll. It was heavier now. Not imagined weight, real, dragging weight. Like wet clothes clinging to skin. Her arms ached immediately. The house reacted. Pipes knocked once inside the walls. Somewhere water began to run. Sari stood and carried the doll down the hall. With every step, the pressure increased. Her ears rang. Her vision narrowed. By the time she reached the bathroom, her knees were shaky. The tub was full. She didn't remember turning the water on. She didn't remember how long it had been running. The surface trembled faintly, as if something beneath it was breathing. Sari lowered the doll into the water first. It did not float. The moment its cloth body submerged, the room changed. The air thickened, the lights flickered once and steadied. The water level dropped, just slightly, as if making space. Sari's reflection stared back at her from the surface, blurred, distorted, already wrong. "You can have it," she said. Her voice sounded far away. "All of it." The water moved. Sari climbed into the tub fully clothed, the cold bit hard enough to steal her breath. She held the doll against her chest, the pressure eased, the noise in her head quieted. The house went still. In the nursery, Ella slept through the night for the first time in weeks. Morning came. Brandon found the bathroom door locked from the inside. The tub was empty. No water, no footprints, no sign of struggle. Only the doll sat upright in the crib beside Ella, dry and warm, its glassy eyes focused now, alert. Ella woke smiling.
She's being very quiet,
Ella said. Brandon felt it then, unmistakable, a presence in the walls, steady and listening, following the pipes wherever they ran. The house no longer strained. It no longer whispered. It had what it needed, and it would not need another for a very long time. Sometimes the things that are most terrifying aren't even loud or violent. They're patient, just waiting. The doll carried grief, guilt, and memory that no one else could. What would you carry if it chose you? It's time for something from our listeners. This week, I wanted to share an email. Hey, we are fans that frequently watch your videos. My friend has a request for something that used to happen to her. It started when she was around 5 years old. Growing up, she was always told she was very observant, quiet, reserved, with an imagination stronger than most. One night, her parents were out, and she was home alone, sitting in their room, watching TV. She got hungry and decided to grab a snack. Their house was old, built sometime in the 1950s, and all the lights were off except the one in her parents' room. As she stepped into the hallway and reached to turn on the light, she saw a girl standing in front of the back door. Her face was completely covered by long black hair. She was tall, around 5'5", and wearing a long white dress that hung off her pale skin like a rag. Even though she was terrified, she didn't scream. She just ran back into her parents' room and left the light on. When her parents got home, she immediately told her mom what she had seen. Her mom believed her. She always thought her daughter was gifted and gave her a card with a prayer on it saying that if she ever saw the girl again, the prayer would make her go away. Not long after, her mom took her to see someone she believed was a psychic. The psychic told her mom that she was very conscious and aware and suggested cutting bangs to close her third eye. Her mom did exactly that. For a while, nothing else happened. Then, when she was about 9 years old, her family was on a road trip to visit relatives in Mexico. She was looking out the window while they were driving down a highway when she saw her again, standing off to the side of the road, turning her head to watch the cars pass. She immediately told her mom. When she looked back, the girl was gone. After that, years passed and she never saw her again. She's older now, but she still thinks about it and still watches for her, scared she'll come back someday. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. I hope you enjoyed my story. Get back to me soon if you can. Sincerely, your fans. Thank you so much to our fan or fans who sent this letter. We love this story, and thanks so much for listening to us. You can think you can escape them, but some infestations don't stay in the walls. They stay in your mind, like in this experience shared by Noelle. I hate bugs, all of them. Flies, bees, mosquitoes, I can't stand them. But cockroaches terrify me. Even as a kid, one crawling across my plate made my skin crawl, my stomach twist. I could still feel its legs brushing against my fingers, slick, twitching, impossibly fast. Sometimes, even now, I swear I feel them wriggling under my skin, burrowing just beneath the surface. That day, I knew some fears never leave you. They wait. When I finally moved into my own house, I thought I was safe. Clean, quiet, mine. But I was wrong. The first cockroach appeared while I was eating spaghetti, right there on my kitchen table, legs clicking against the wood, my fork hovered midair. I watched it pause, antenna quivering, like it was tasting the air, testing me. My stomach knotted. I imagined it crawling into the noodles, into my hair, even my mouth. I smashed it with my shoe, wrapped it in a napkin, tossed it in the trash. Done. Right? Wrong. 2 more appeared on the floor, then a dozen, then dozens more. They poured from every crack, every shadow under the fridge, behind cabinets, under tiles that never looked so wrong before. I sprayed them, stomped them, burned them with the heat of my panic, but they kept coming. Always more. The air thickened with the sickly tang of rot, sweet and sour, something acid like burnt plastic mixed with decay. My stomach turned. At night, I could hear them, clicking, whispering behind walls. I'd wake up, lights on, nothing there, but a dead one would appear in my shoe or on the kitchen counter, perfectly still in a place it could never have gotten to. Sometimes they were arranged, like messages. I tried not to look too closely. I called an exterminator. He stopped dead in the doorway, scanning the room like it was alive, hands twitching, mouth opening, closing, no words. Finally, I'd never seen anything like this in 25 years. His voice trembled. The air grew heavier. I could feel the movement in the corners of my vision. Something brushed my leg. Too fast, too deliberate. He sprayed, killed some, but others vanished into cracks and holes. I swear I felt their eyes on me. One brushed my ankle again, a flicker of legs, antenna dancing across my skin. My stomach lurched. This wasn't an infestation. It was something else. Finally, the basement. The smell hit first. Sweat, sour, ammonia, decay. It made my stomach convulse. I gripped the railing, taking the first step down. Wet legs brushed my ankle. I froze. Something hissed. A hiss just at the edge of my hearing. Deliberate. Aware. The exterminator froze too. Run. Get out now. His voice was thin, barely there. His skin paled, and his hand shook like he was holding back something worse than fear. And then I saw them. Not big, normal cockroach size, but everywhere. On the walls, floor, ceiling, piled on top of each other, moving with impossible coordination. A single organism with thousands of legs. Wet trails glistened where they'd been. My mouth went dry. One brushed my hand. Its bite burned, throbbed. The exterminator screamed. Dozens swarmed him at once. I couldn't move. His screams changed pitch. High, wet, guttural, then choked off. The clicking became louder, relentless, organized. When it ended, nothing remained but a twisted, lifeless husk. Then I noticed her, a shadow in the corner, antenna flicking, legs moving too fast to track. The roach queen. Not bigger than the others, but different. She didn't need to be large. The swarm obeyed her perfectly. Her black eyes glittered like wet stones. I felt her in every movement, in every slick leg brushing past. I stumbled back. Clicking grew louder, wet and rhythmic. Her brute skittered toward the stairs, relentless. I slammed the basement door, fingers trembling, locking it. The pounding and scraping echoed through the wood. They were testing every crack, every tiny gap, probing. I wanted to scream. I couldn't. I ran outside into my car, heart hammering, sweat slick. I drove as far as I could, never looking back. When I reached my parents' house, I tried to tell them everything. The infestation, the larva, the queen, the exterminator. They laughed. "Cockroaches? In your basement?" my dad said. "You're probably just seeing things." I froze. A faint scratching came from the corner of the room. A hiss, soft but deliberate, slithered along the air. My skin crawled. Something brushed my hair, antenna, tiny legs impossibly fast, watching. I turned slowly and froze. On the ceiling, hundreds of tiny shapes had gathered. They weren't moving randomly. They were arranged into a shape, a face. The black eyes glimmered back at me. And in the center, the queen, smaller than I remembered, sitting like she had always been waiting, always in control. She tilted her head, the movement impossibly human, almost intelligent. I realized something that made my stomach plummet. She hadn't followed me. She had waited. And now, she had the house. I tried to move, to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. The scratching, clicking, wet leg brushing sensation spread across my arms, my neck, crawling under my clothes. And then I felt it, the subtle, deliberate pressure of dozens of tiny bodies pressing against me, guiding me. The last thing I saw before everything went black was her eyes, wide, soulless, glimmering black, fixed on me. And I knew the infestation wasn't just following me. It had claimed me. And somewhere deep, I understood. There is no escape from the smallest, deadliest creatures. They don't need doors. They don't need windows. They wait. And they watch. The feeling of something crawling under your skin is enough to make me shiver. But imagine it multiplied by hundreds, each one aware, each one deliberate. If the smallest creatures can follow you home, how would you know where they're hiding? Has anyone ever had a terrifying encounter involving the supernatural? Tell us your scary story by sending us an email at SomethingScary@snarled.com. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube @Snarled so you never miss an episode creeping your way. And trust me, you won't want to miss a thing, particularly as we gear up for spooky season in 2026. Until then, as always, sweet screams, witches. This week's podcast stories were edited by Sarah Lukasiewicz, narration by Blair Bathory, produced, edited, and mixed by Fitz Harris, executive produced by Gail Gilman, music by Sapphire Sindalo and Calvin Linderman. If you have a story you'd like to submit, send me an email at somethingscary@snarled.com. Don't forget to watch the video version of Something Scary over at youtube.com/snarled. And if you'd like to support the show and everything we do at Snarled, join our Patreon at patreon.com/snarled.